Good morning and welcome to Sunday worship with the Eno River Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. We are located in Durham, North Carolina, on the ancestral lands of the Eno, Sissipaha, Shakori, Sapani, and Lumbee people. I am Reverend Patty Hanneman. I'm a member of this congregation, and I will be joining you each Sunday in July while the Reverends Deborah Kerr and Jacqueline Brett are away, refreshing their spirits. It is a joy to be with you this morning. Whoever you are, wherever you are, whomever you love, and whatever your spiritual path, you are welcome here at the Eno River Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. Welcome. We're glad you've joined us this morning. If you are new to this community, and especially if this is your first time with us today, I invite you to introduce yourself in the chat. We would like to get to know you better. You'll also find a link there that will help you learn more about this particular congregation. There will be a virtual Inquirers class today at noon, where you can also learn more about this congregation's history and take a virtual tour of the campus here. We invite you to join our virtual coffee hour that will take place immediately after the service, and you can find information about how to join either of these events in the chat box. And also, the information will be on your screen when worship is ended. And you can also find that information on our website, ERUUF.org, in the middle of the homepage under Events. I want to welcome back the ERUUF groups. We are meeting on campus again. And for many of you I know who have been on campus this week, it has been both a joyful and in some cases even an emotional experience to be back. We are delighted that you are back on campus again. Our guest minister today is the Reverend Lisa Garcia-Sampson. Reverend Lisa serves as the executive director of Forward Together, which is the Unitarian Universalist Justice Ministry of North Carolina. In this role, Reverend Lisa has the pleasure to work alongside Unitarian Universalists across the state, doing justice work that spans racial, economic, immigrant, environmental, and electoral justice. We are honored to have Reverend Lisa speaking with us this morning. Today's live music is provided by Kate Lewis on the piano, along with offerings by others. Our tech team includes Sean Trimble and Jenny Jolly. Scott Gaskins is our sound engineer. Thank all of you for being in the sanctuary with us this morning to help create this worshipful and sacred space. Let's take a moment now to center ourselves together as a community as we take a breath in, considering and feeling the energy of this beloved community, and a deep breath out as we release any concerns or anything that might be in our way of being fully present this morning. Another breath in, and a long breath out to relax our bodies. We begin now with our prelude. Our opening words are by Daniel Cantor. To love life is to notice the wonders that abound. And to notice the wonders that abound is to be grounded here and now. And to be grounded here and now is the beginning of finding love for this life today. Let us ground ourselves in this instant in the worship of all things good and right. We light our chalice this morning, and as we do so, may we open our hearts to the sacredness and the beauty that unfolds for us this day. Our opening hymn this morning is Gather the Spirit, sung by the Eno River Singer Ensemble. I invite you to sing along from wherever you are, as the words will be on your screen.
Hi, I'm Rick Hendrick with an update on ERUUF's Chalice Circles and Covenant Groups. These groups are a major part of UU's small group ministry nationwide. Each group consists of 8 to 10 people who meet once or twice a month for a year, often continuing together. We explore, through sharing and deep listening, a different topic of the group's choosing each month. This time together helps us build lasting relationships within ERUUF. Many members say that an additional benefit is that we learn how to better listen and reflect, and to know that we are heard as well. I personally attest to the power of that experience. ERUUF has over 170 members and friends actively participating in these groups. The small size, regular meetings, and personal sharing help us develop a home base for our involvement in ERUUF. Groups also perform at least one service project each year, usually 2 to 4 hours, providing an opportunity to put into practice the values we share. During this pandemic, many members have told us that their group has been an important way for them to stay connected with the ERUUF community. We on the steering team want you to know that the registration to join one of these groups is open now and is ongoing until new registrants are assigned to groups in early October. This registration will include options for anyone who prefers to participate remotely. We're asking everyone who is interested and is not already in a group to sign up by mid-September or during this year's Connections Fair, so we can finalize group assignments to kick off our October meetings. To learn more, go to the ERUUF website and click on Connect, then on Covenant Groups and Chalice Circles. For more information, click on the light blue Contact button to reach someone from the steering team. There's also a dark blue Request to Join button. When you register, you will be able to designate the times that you're available for meetings and also whether you wish to meet online or in person. Thanks.
This is the sound of one voice, one spirit, one voice, the sound of one who makes a choice. This is the sound of one voice. This is the sound of one voice. This is the sound of voices too. The sound of me singing with you, helping each other to make it through. This is the sound of voices too. This is the sound of voices too. This is the sound of voices three, singing together in harmony, surrendering to the mystery. This is the sound of voices three. This is the sound of voices three. This is the sound of all of us, singing with love and the will to trust. Leave the rest behind, it'll turn to dust. This is the sound of all
Good morning. Well, today's reading is actually a story. It's adapted from a Swedish folk tale and from Marcia Brown's retelling of the fable in her book, Stone Soup. There once was a traveler who came to a small village, tired and weary from his long journey. The traveler didn't have anything to eat and hoped that a friendly villager would be able to feed him. So he went to a first house, knocked on the door, and he asked the woman who answered if she could spare just a small bit of food, for he had traveled a long journey and was very hungry. But the woman replied, "I'm sorry, but I have nothing to give you. You see, I can barely feed my own family." So the traveler went to another door, and he asked again, and the answer was the same, "I have nothing to give you." He went from door to door to door, and each time was turned away. But undaunted, the traveler went to the village square, took a small tin cooking pot from his bag, filled it with water, and started a fire, dropping a stone in the pot. As he boiled the water, a passing villager stopped by and asked him what he was doing, and he said, "I'm making stone soup. Would you like to join me?" "Sure," the villager said, and he asked if carrots were good in stone soup. "Oh yeah, sure," said the traveler, and so the villager went home and returned with a bundle of carrots from his garden to add to the boiling water. Soon another curious villager came by and was invited to join them, and she went home and returned with some potatoes. A young boy passed by and soon joined the group, bringing his mother's dinner bowls from their home. In time, a crowd gathered, with everyone offering their own favorite ingredient. Mushrooms, onion, salt, black pepper, acorn squash. Everyone wanted to be a part of the creation. And finally, the traveler removed the stone and declared, "The soup is ready." And the whole community joined in a feast where there had been none before.
We shall be known.
In the midst of so much loss this past year, it's been sometimes difficult to remember how abundant our lives truly are. Last summer during General Assembly, I was very moved by a workshop given by the Reverend Galen Guggenrich on the spiritual practice of gratitude. And it was a practice that I was sorely lacking in my life, something that I really needed at the time. And I've practiced his first light meditation each morning for a year now as a reminder of how abundant my life truly is. All that is added to my pot every day. During this prayerful time this morning, I would like to share this practice with you. And I'd like to begin by asking us all to pause, to feel our breath again expanding our lungs, feeling the weight of our bodies on the earth, grounding ourselves in the earth. And now let your mind drift to the events of yesterday and consider anything that you might need to leave behind, any harsh words that were spoken, anything left undone, any disappointments. Just consider something that you need to leave. And then shift your mind to the present moment. Consider your present concerns and what you need right now. And then finally, open your mind to the day ahead what is possible for this day, what tasks you might want to most accomplish, what intentions you bring. Take some time to write these 3 things down that you have just mentioned. The arc of gratitude, moving from what is past through what is present toward what is possible. And if you were doing this in the early morning, this might be an appropriate time to read a poem or a piece of inspirational writing, finishing with these words. I receive the gift of this new day with gratitude. I seek to accept all that is past. I seek to embrace all that is present. I seek to realize all that is possible. The clarity of truth, the joy of beauty, the satisfaction of justice, the lure of adventure, the fullness of peace. I seek to be worthy of the gift of this new day. Amen.
Love, in this great turning we shall learn to lead in love.
Good morning. It's really exciting to be here with you all today. This is my very first time preaching at ERUUF, but over the past 2 years, I have had the privilege of getting to know so many of you through our justice work together. For those of you who don't know me, though, my name is Reverend Lisa Garcia-Sampson, and 2 years ago, my spouse Rhea and I moved to Durham from Rhode Island for Rhea's family medicine residency at Duke. And in February of last year, I became the executive director of our UU Justice Ministry in North Carolina, taking over for the Reverend John Saxon. And if I'm honest, it was not the ministry I had ever imagined for myself, but it has profoundly changed me, deepening both my call to ministry and my faith. Just as I began my new job, the UUA launched a year-long campaign called UU the Vote. It was an unprecedented call to live into our values by engaging in nonpartisan voting work during the most consequential election of our lifetime. My friend, the Reverend Renoir Hamemi, described it as our altar call moment, a profession of faith not through our words but through our actions. It was bold and ambitious, and National Lead organizer Nicole Presley challenged our faith to reach out to 1 million voters by Election Day. But I'll get back to that a little bit later. As many of you know, North Carolina was all in on UU the Vote. But after the pandemic hit, you can imagine that we went from Plan A, which was a door-to-door canvass, to Plan B, and then C, and then D. And in the end, we knew that the cornerstone of our UU the Vote campaign in North Carolina would need to be something that I had never done before and something that a lot of people really don't like to do. If we were going to connect with North Carolina voters, we were going to need to phone bank. So despite our apprehension, last year we planned a 13-week phone bank, starting last summer and going straight through to Election Day. And I have to admit, even I was sort of dreading it. But in the end, it ended up teaching me lessons that I will carry with me for the rest of my life. The night of our first phone bank arrived and I was ready. I had not only learned how to phone bank myself, but how to teach others to do it. We promoted it to UUs, not just across the state, but across the country. And boy, was that a memorable first night. Because that night we had, I counted on one. 0. Nobody showed up. Absolutely no one. But these are the moments, right? The moments in life when you decide to either give up or to dig in. And you better believe we dug in. Doubled down on our outreach. And 1 week later, our second event arrived, and I opened up the Zoom room wondering if we'd have a repeat of week 1. But then that beautiful Zoom ding sounded again and again and again. You know what it sounds like. And we had a dozen people, not only North Carolina UUs, but also a half a dozen people from, of all places, University Unitarian Church in Seattle, Washington. Didn't see that coming, but I'll take it. Weeks 3 and 4 and 5 came, and people kept coming. People across the state, including ERUUFians, but also UUs from Virginia and Maryland and Washington and Massachusetts. People from all over the place were showing up to help North Carolina voters get the information they needed to vote. And slowly something happened. We became a community. Thursday nights took shape with a distinct, joyful culture. We started playing pump-up music at the start of each event. We incorporated a debrief where I would throw confetti when somebody shared a particularly excellent phone call that they had that night. One turning point came when our friends at the Community Church of Chapel Hill came up with this idea to get more people to show up from the congregation. So they broadcasted out on their church's Facebook group that if they got a certain number of people to attend the phone bank, their director of religious education would, no joke, dye her hair the color voted on by the congregation. And sure enough, they hit that goal, and the next week, Mary and her showed up to the next Thursday night phone bank with purple hair. Inspired by their creativity, our friends from Seattle, Washington, who were, by the way, still showing up, set a similar challenge with their congregation, and this time, the bet resulted in their UU the Vote captain, Steve, showing up to a phone bank with the word vote shaved into the side of his head. Every week, it seemed like a new idea was popping up. It was joyful and creative and fun. And by the end of our 13-week stretch, we had 60 people showing up every Thursday night. People who 3 months back had never used Google Voice before became our Google Voice tech experts. People who had cringed at the idea of phone banking became our best recruiters. And in the end, we logged nearly 1,000 hours of calls to North Carolina voters, and that is in addition to writing over 30,000 postcards, doing voter registration, Board of Elections advocacy, election day volunteering, and so much more. Over the course of last church year, over 650 North Carolina UUs across 16 congregations got involved. And we are just one of the many stories that made up UU the Vote. As I mentioned earlier, our national UU the Vote organizer, Nicole Presley, challenged our faith to reach out to 1 million voters by Election Day. And you can probably imagine that some were a little bit worried about us announcing such a massive goal for a small denomination like ours. Well, it turns out people were right to question that goal. Because you see, by October, through our phone calls and letters and postcards and text messages, we had already reached out to 3 million people. 3 million people. In this last year, in a time of such deep pain and scarcity, we activated more UUs to the work of justice than ever before in our history. And now that we know what we are capable of, we can't go back. Now the question is, do we believe that we are just getting started? That we have just barely glimpsed the full, liberating power of this faith? Do we truly believe in the abundance of this movement? That is what our reading is about this morning. In the story, the tired, hungry traveler strolls into town in hopes that somebody will offer him some food, but at first the people of the village say, "I don't have anything to give you." Like our culture today, they were responding from a place of fear and scarcity, perhaps in feeling like, hey, we're barely holding it together ourselves. But the traveler had faith, a faith in the town's collective abundance, a faith that the town actually had everything they needed to nourish one another if only they could gather around the fire and watch the soup simmer until they themselves experience a spark of imagination and generosity. Justice movements, large and small justice movements, are like a stone soup. You don't just start with an exact plan and all of the ingredients that you need ready to go. You just start. You kindle the fire and drop the stone in the water. And you believe that people will come. You believe that if only folks can gather, it will begin to spark each other's imagination and create a larger vision. And we will offer our gifts and capacities. In the times that I have had the pleasure of being here at ERUUF, I have been in awe of the abundant stone soup of this community. In your justice work, in your connections fair, listening to the beloved community chorus, and most recently in your gift of 2,500 hours of love, honoring Reverend Deborah's ministry. In all of these things and so much more, ERUUF embodies that spirit of abundance, that faithful commitment to justice that our world so desperately needs right now. And this is the understatement of the century, but in this moment, in this defining moment for our country, we need absolutely everyone at the table, offering their gifts and capacities. Recently, I came across a wonderful diagram from the lawyer and activist Deepa Iyer, which lays out the different roles that are critical to the social change ecosystem. And I want to share them with you. We need builders, healers, artists and storytellers, bridge builders, frontline responders, caregivers, disruptors, and visionaries. Perhaps one of those roles naturally spoke to you. And it's important that we are attuned to our gifts and sharpen those gifts because it can help us to be of service to the movement. This community is filled with so many contributions to the Stone Soup of movement. Perhaps you're skilled at taking pictures or meeting notes or writing letters to the editor. Do you have a truck to deliver supplies to Durham's Fed Up food distribution program? Can you write Facebook posts, coordinate an old-fashioned phone tree, run Zoom tech support? Most importantly, who brings the music? Who brings the joy, the laughter? Who remembers the birthdays? And who brings the cake? We need all of these things in the movement. And with that being said, we also know that we can't be rigid in our understanding of our gifts and roles, because being a part of a movement is a constant negotiation, a discernment that occurs in relationship with the collective, while standing around the fire and watching new ingredients be added to the soup. We ask, what am I called to add? We must be malleable and open to change. Maybe you deeply identify as a healer or a storyteller or a builder, but are called to expand your sense of the many ways in which you might live into that call based on the needs of this moment, perhaps as a fundraiser or a social media lead. And sometimes in this work, you will just be called to go beyond your comfort and embrace a different role altogether. I'm thinking of members of this congregation like Linda and Anne and Holly, who phone banked with us last year. Perhaps you were introverts who had never phone banked before and couldn't have ever imagined doing what you did. It's amazing how our sense of who we are can change. And that is what this work is meant to do. As we transform this world, we also transform ourselves. Friends, this is an unprecedented moment of possibility, a chance to give birth to something new. And this movement in our nation is a stone soup. It emerged out of a deep, aching hunger for liberation and a belief in one another, that we can gather around the fire of community and let it spark our imagination and hear it call our name. Call out for our contributions to the sacred, unfolding recipe. I want to leave you with this question. What if we actually have everything we need? What if the capacity to transform this nation already exists among us and within us, and the only thing stopping us is faith in one another and faith in ourselves? In this moment when it is so tempting to be driven by fear and scarcity, let us embody abundance and love and generosity. And when we do, The table will overflow with all that we are and all that we can be. And our faith will be deepened and our spirits transformed. And together, we will create a liberating movement beyond our wildest imagination. May it be so. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Lisa. Everybody that has worked with you is so incredibly grateful that you have found this calling. And we also know that everything that we do with you is a celebration and it's joyful, and that we need to remember to bring our confetti. So thank you. One of the ways we show our appreciation for the abundance in our lives is through the ways we make financial contributions. The giving that you do for this community helps keep ERUUF strong and vibrant. We encourage you to be generous this morning as we take up our morning offering. Instructions for how to make a contribution will be on your screen. Thank you for your generosity this morning. We are grateful for your gifts this morning. And I am grateful for everyone who has joined me in the sanctuary this morning to help create this sacred and beautiful space. Grateful to all of you who have joined us for this Sunday morning worship service. I invite you to stay for coffee hour once the service is ended. Our closing hymn this morning is Building a New Way. The words will be on your screen, so I invite you to sing along with us wherever you happen to be this morning.
It's a song called Building a New Way. I wrote this quite a while ago. And it traveled around the country. It was in a couple of different women's courses, at least a couple that I know of, and probably a few more have made their own arrangements of it. And then it appeared in the Unitarian Universalist hymnal, addendum to their hymnal, Singing the Journey. And here's my version of it. So there are many other versions out. Since it's my song, I get to have my own version. We are building a new way. We are building a new way. We are building a new way. Working for it every day. We are building a new way. We are working to be free. We are working now, working to be free. We are working to be free, hate and greed and jealousy. We are working to be free. Peace and freedom. Freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom. Oh, freedom is our cry. Oh, peace and freedom is our cry. Without peace, world is worth life. Peace and freedom is our cry. We are building. We're building a new way. Yes, we are building. Building a new way. We are building a new way. We're working for it every day. We are building a new way. We are building a new way. We are building a new way.
We are building a new way, grounded in the here and now, leading with love, believing in abundance, grateful for all that is our life. Go in peace, my friends. Amen, and blessed be.